So again, welcome. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the agenda for the this webinar. I'm going to keep it within 60 minutes. I've always noticed in the past, if ever a webinar has gone over 60 minutes, then I start to see people drop off. So out of fairness, I shall keep it 60 minutes. If you'll give me the courtesy of giving me your attention for those 60 minutes, that would be very much appreciated. So the presentation agenda, I'm just trying to put things, they're blocking my view. There's lots of Zoom related pop-ups in my view at the moment. Right then. So the agenda is, there are some brand new names on the list now in front of me, people that may or may not have met me before. So a very, very brief introduction about myself and AVN. In other words, you know, who am I, why should you listen to this presentation? I'll keep that short. We'll get to the crux of the presentation, which is ultimately, and I haven't advertised it with this language, but really it's about how to train your clients to make your life easier. Now, this is a webinar that I ran a couple of years ago the first time, and it went down a storm. Now, I'm not a great fan of repeating webinars that I've run in the past, but ultimately a fresh audience. And given that I've had a few people recently just raise it again as being a very powerful webinar that they found made a huge difference to their practice, I thought I would do. So why, in terms of tax return season, why is it so mad? And in my view, it is self-induced madness. What strategies you can use, and I've got an interview with one of our members based in Plymouth who has got this whole process absolutely nailed. He's had it nailed for a number of years now, and he openly shares what the process he goes through is. I'd like to share with you, if you don't mind, just an opportunity where you can improve your practice by us working maybe a little more closely together. There's no commitment there whatsoever, of course, and anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. I've got a couple of bonuses for you as well. So one is I've got some free resources for you that you can download at the end of this webinar. Free resources as a help sheet which, sorry, let me just pull up that slide. You get a help sheet which will give you some advice and strategies that you can use to make this stuff happen. Checklists and a letter to send out to your clients. All of this stuff will complement the stuff I'm talking about today. I referred to this earlier. You may or may not have seen the ad that we put out there on Facebook as well that was just advertising this webinar. And here was a nice quote from Michael Hem. I'm not sure it was yesterday or the day before. I certainly saw it yesterday when he just said that from his point of view, it made a profound difference. And already, he's for the past couple of years, he's collected in 90% of his tax returns and got them dealt with before the end of October. So this stuff works. It's not unique to the one individual that I'm interviewing. In fact, there are many of the members that we work with that has made this stuff happen as well. Okay, so that's bonus one, and there is a second bonus as well, which is a diagnostic tool for your practice that you can go through, and it will give you a very specific report on things that you can do to make improvements on some of the maybe the areas that are most that are going to give you the quickest wins in your practice based on that diagnostic process. So I'll give you the means to run through that as well at the end of this webinar. And then finally, of course, we will have a questions and answer session. Okay, so let me get on with that, and I see that we've got quite a few more people have joined us now, so let's get to the introduction. So who are AVM? We are AVM, we are Inspiring Accountants. What we stand for really is inspiring accountants to become much more inspiring accountants to their clients and make much more of a difference to them. We are a coaching and training organisation for accountants. We're a UK-wide community for those accountants, and emphasis on the word independent there. We're not out to tell people how to run their practice. We don't try and create a franchise mechanism or model or anything like that. We have proven strategies, ideas and concepts that we share, and we help accountants ultimately create a practice that works for them, that gives them the life and the lifestyle that they want to get out of their own accountancy practice. We take accountants through a 7-stage signature roadmap that will help them, that does help them achieve those standards as well. Um, to date, I mean, we've been going 20 years this year. In fact, some of the people on this list were at our conference just over a month ago, where we were celebrating the anniversary, the 20-year anniversary on that particular day. So huge celebration from our point of view. Very proud to have been around for 20 years, but also obviously just reinforcing the fact that we've got 20 years experience of helping lots of accountants improve their practice through those accountants, because our model really is help accountants get their practice in order first, get that delivering the type of lifestyle that they want. But an accountancy practice is ultimately a business, and we know that the future really for accountants is to deliver much more value in terms of business growth advice to their clients. So helping those accountants deliver that kind of service much more effectively to their clients is our secondary outcome. And to date, in fact, that's a slightly out of date number, but we've impacted on over 9 million lives now through our givings, helping people throughout the world off the back of the profits and different activities that we do within AVN. So that's not £9 million worth of givings, that's 9 million impacts. That might be getting somebody fresh water for a day. It might be getting a well installed, or it might be providing education for a month or even a year, depending on the different things that we get involved in. Just going to check my Q&A box. I noticed that there's a question in there. So will there be a recording of this webinar available afterwards? Let me just make sure that recording is happening. So it is being recorded now, yes. I always make these available. We usually put them onto our YouTube channel and send out a link for anybody who has requested it. I do want to emphasize, we monitor all of this stuff, and it's very rare that the people who have requested, right, do me a favor, just pop in the chat box, anybody, all of you, that you can still hear me, because I've got a message come up now saying that my Zoom isn't working. Right, okay. Yeah, you can hear me still. All right, I seem to have lost my screen share. All right, I'm here. All right, that's cool. And thank you, Patrick. Thank you. In fact, thank you, everybody. There's lots of yeses coming up. That's cool. I mentioned earlier, I've been having a few technical issues, so I'm hoping everything will go right. Okay, yeah, Simon, just to answer your question, it will be there, but ultimately we see that very few people ever go and watch the recording. And I think there's a massive difference between something that's recorded, it's there, it can sit on the shelf, I can do that anytime. The reality is it never gets, people never get around to doing it, do they? So you're here in the moment, so my request is try and stay here and just take the notes, and obviously you can refer to the recording if you want to. So that's a little bit about AVN, a little bit about me. My personal purpose in life, I believe, is to enable people's ability to make better choices. It says better lifestyle choices, but actually that can be on 3 levels. So the fundamental brain's ability to make choice. I do lots of different things to help people recover from brain injury. Now, I can't do that directly, but I do charity work to help charities that help people recover from brain injury and do brain research. So that's one aspect of the brain's ability to make choice. There are people around the world that have very little choice about the life that they lead, owing to no access to education, poverty, all of those things. So they have very little choice about their lifestyle. Try and help them in any way that we can through the business and personally. And of course, most business owners out there feel that they have absolutely no choice but to keep working an endless amount of hours, often at the expense of family, friends, and health. So that kind of encompasses what I'm passionate about. I've written a number of books so far. In fact, there are 4 there. I'm just most of the way through my 5th book, which I can't wait to get finished for a number of reasons. But ultimately, I'm really looking forward to that. So I've got book number 5, still awaiting a title, so I can't even give you a title to give you a heads up on that. But most of the way there on that one. I'm happily married. I've got a couple of fantastic kids. The boy on the left there that you can see now has a black eye because he was fighting at school. So he's a mini-me in many ways, I think, from those days. But I think I display this slide just to reinforce the fact that from a personal lifestyle choice, I like to explore the world, and family ties are incredibly important to me. And so we do as much as we can. So that's me on holiday in China with my parents as well. So I just wanted to reiterate the fact that we do that. Right, okay, so on to the crux of this particular webinar. This is an element of the stuff that we cover in our clarity stage of the workbook, so our roadmap. Clarity is ultimately about implementing some of the simple steps, the quick wins that are going to get great rewards. So in clarity in general, we start with the end in mind, we'll work back through vision, strategies, and let me just stop my watch from beeping. Get a vision strategy in place, a pricing strategy in place, marketing strategy, ultimately around getting some of the quickest wins in place that are going to be dealt with first. So that forms part of our 7-stage roadmap, clarity. The reason why this tax return webinar fits in with clarity is because clarity will help people free up their time, start to better structure elements of their practice that make sure that they're not working a ridiculous amount of hours, that they've got that time that they want to. And a lot of it is just around maybe better planning in some cases and having a strategy in place. A couple of admin things. So this is where my prompt is to say, yes, it is being recorded. Now, some of you have already tagged in the chat box. What I'd like to do, just to make sure that, because there are some new names, if you like, not necessarily faces, but new names on my list that I can see in front of me, by way of accessing the chat box or the Q&A, and really the chat box is usually my preference, can you all just go onto it and just type in your name into the chat box? That would be fantastic. That'll let me know that you can all see that, and I can very quickly do it'll tell me how many people have messaged in there. So, okay, that's fantastic. If you can't see the chat box logo, just wave your mouse over me or my slides and you'll get a pop-up menu and you'll see chat box in there. So that's spot on, seeing lots of names come up, and the count is almost in line with the number of people. So maybe a few of you either haven't found it or are passively listening to this. Okay, that's cool. Thank you very much anyway, that verifies that. Okay, so one of the challenges often faced, or many of the challenges faced by accountants are that they become a slave to their clients. And tax return season is a great example of that. You know, I talk to so many accountants that have said, yeah, I've been burning the midnight oil, I've been having stuff brought into me at the very last minute, and ultimately you're the one that's working the ridiculous amount of hours for the benefit of your clients who have almost just dropped this through the door and expected you to just deliver on this stuff at the drop of a hat. Tax return season isn't the only time this happens. There are lots of other occasions throughout the whole year, aren't there? But tax return season arguably raises that awareness for us. They also demand rock bottom fees, which undermines your level of professionalism as an accountant, doesn't it? They expect extra work was included. So even if you've agreed a fixed fee at the beginning of the year with them, those little phone calls that they might have, and they've asked you for this and they've asked you for that, and then they don't expect that you're going to charge for that extra work. You get into fee disputes, and it's just not pleasant. They hold you to ransom. So, you know, well, if you can't do this for me, the accountants up the road said they will happily do it for me, and even cheaper. And as I say, they kind of hold you to ransom on that level as well. Most accountants know that really the future is that they need to be delivering business growth advice, but actually most business owners, they're not accustomed to their accountants, certainly not charging for it. And they don't really often respect and receive well the advice that they're given. They almost take it with a pinch of salt, especially if they can see that their accountant is burning the midnight oil and they don't seem to have got everything in order themselves. You know, why should I take advice from you in that sense? So ultimately, I suppose they don't appreciate or respect their accountant in the way that they ought to, which leaves the accountant feeling that they're not getting that sense of fulfillment that they'd like to. They're not enjoying running their practice, and in many ways it's not actually that profitable either. So give me a yes or a no if you can relate to any of that. Paul, you've told me that your chat box is not working, but ultimately you can use a Q&A. That's fine, I've got both in front of me now. Just give me a yes or a no in the chat box if any of the things that you can see on screen you can relate to. Okay, so oodles of yeses coming up. We'll keep them coming in as well, because not all of you are responding to me right now. Yeah, your client seems to come first. Yeah, I get that, Claire, and you'll know, Claire, because you'll have heard me say this a few times. But ultimately, the most important client never comes first, and your most important client is, of course, your own accountancy practice. Okay, so I've got some yeses in the Q&A and on the screen as well. So thank you very much for that. So forgive my next slide, it almost sounds like a bit of a stamp, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And this is ultimately what January tax return season looks like, isn't it? We end up doing exactly the same thing every year. We're not getting a different result because we're doing the same thing. We're relying on business owners bringing in, or our clients in general, bringing in their information at the last minute. Happens every single time. And we've almost fallen into this rut, if you like, of just expecting that that's the norm. It doesn't have to be the norm. Now, before I go any further, and I appreciate some of you are regular attenders to my webinars, and you'll have heard me say this lots of times. I'm not going to stop saying it because it's important to me. These are the values at AVN. Now, I'm not going to share all of these in detail right now. I just want to highlight one of them, which is keep evolving. So, as I say, I'll explain these in a little bit more detail later on because I think you'll find it's important yourself. But one of them is keep evolving, and this applies to our team and the people we work with. We encourage people to learn and develop, and the fact that you're on this webinar right now suggests that you fit with that. But also the last one there is stretch, and you'll see a little circle there that's about stepping outside of your comfort zone. And to a large extent, that means, what I mean by that is I don't want people just to read book after book and attend webinar after attending webinar and not do anything with the learning. And something that I suppose I've been aware of sometimes in the past is that people put things like this on as a bit of background noise whilst they're getting on with other work. They're not giving me their undivided attention, which doesn't give me a great sense of fulfillment in what I'm doing. But also, those people really aren't taking this as active learning that they're going to do something with. So many of you have written in the chat box already, or the Q&A, so I know that you know how to use it. Give me a passive or an active to let me know right now. Are you just going to have this on as background noise whilst you're getting on with other stuff, or are you going to actively pay attention to me for the rest of this 40 minutes that we've got together? And that'll just tell me how determined you are to make a difference to your practice going forward. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds while I take a quick drink. So far, I've only had 3 actives come in. So yeah, keep those coming. Thank you very much for that. They're all coming in now. A bit of both. Can I ask that you pick one rather than a bit of both? Undivided attention. Thank you, Paul. That's what I like to see. Okay, thank you. There's lots coming there now. So I'm just going to get rid of my slides for a few minutes now. I don't need any slides to talk you through what I'm going to talk you through. So let me just get rid of my slides. Right. So I'm going to stop my screen share now. Patrick, if you'd be kind enough just to verify you can still hear me and see me, that would be fantastic. I keep seeing these little errors popping up regarding Zoom, so I'm just a little bit wary and I don't want to be talking to myself. Okay. Right then, so yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for that, Patrick. Now, a couple of extra things to do, and again, I'm asking for the chat box correspondence, more just to stop pretending that it's live. Okay then, Paul. You've thrown me with that comment, Paul. It is absolutely live. Right, another thing for the chat box is that I'd like you to just type in the box one word that describes how a typical January makes you feel. So just pop that in the chat box, especially in those final days. So I've got drained and I've got energized, so some different ones. Is that energized because you've finished them, or is that energized because you really like to embrace the sort of additional work that comes in at that time? Under pressure, out of control, some other words that I'm seeing here. Frustrated. Okay, keep those coming in. Drained again. So yeah, some sort of similar words coming in here as well. So yeah, that's love the buzz, should I say, of January madness. Okie dokie. Well, yeah, some of us like that extra pain. I'm going to just more rhetorical for your point of view there. If you were hit by a bus in January, would all of this stuff happen without you? It may or may not. I'm not judging. I'm just asking the question, really. Does everything rely on you being present for January to make that happen? If you're unconscious in a coma or something like that, would it? Okay, so the next thing really for the chat box is, how do you see Making Tax Digital impacting on this? Do you think you're going to get more frequent last minute madness throughout the year, or do you think you're going to have it much more under control going forward? Again, so give me, it doesn't have to be limited to one word in the chat box, but just give us a few words to describe your current feelings about how Making Tax Digital is going to be affecting this stuff. Yeah, more busy periods. Apprehensive, that's fair enough. Okay, so you feel that Making Tax Digital will help with that, Claire, that's cool. More last minute rushes. I mean, I think that will be the case. I think ultimately, even with Making Tax Digital, we need to get the clients better trained to be delivering the stuff that we need from them on time. Yeah, I totally agree that clients who don't want to play ball will have to go with their pull. Totally agree, but maybe there is a better way of just getting them to play ball as well. So hopefully more work and pressure. Okay, right. Okay, well, thank you for that. Look, from my point of view, I think tax return season, that word, is the big problem there. We sort of see that as the period of the year when we need to deal with this. But the reality is that it doesn't just have to be limited to the, December and January, does it? Tax returns ultimately can be dealt with throughout the year over a steady pace, certainly for a larger period of the year, can't they? So why is it that January is such a pain? Why do the things come in late? Is it because clients are far too busy the rest of the year and suddenly have some free time in January to drop them in? That's not really going to be the case, is it? They're probably just as busy in January and just as not busy at other times of the year. So that's probably not the reason. I think one of the reasons why the tax return information gets brought in so late is because most of us, we don't deal with something until a deadline starts to approach. So for example, I mean, I can't speak for you guys, but my house insurance got renewed the day it needed renewing. So I didn't take the time to be looking around for better quotes. That happened just last week. And it was because of the deadline. I'm not going to have insurance, so therefore I need to deal with it. And tax return season is no exception, is it? We start to see HMRC adverts coming on TV only really in late December and January, reminding people that they're going to get penalties and fines, etc. So deadlines really do lead to action, and especially the fear associated with missing that deadline. Quite often as well, we respond to he or she who shouts loudest. And obviously, HMRC are shouting at people in their living rooms through the TV, reminding people that we're going to take this action. You may be nagging them, but are you ultimately having as big an influence as HMRC? What method are you communicating with your clients on as well? So and I'm sure everybody, that's different. I genuinely don't think that business owners deliberately leave it to the last minute so that you're ultimately going through all of this pressure to get stuff done. I genuinely think that they just need the right type of motivation to get the stuff into you when you need it. Now, I mentioned earlier that if there's a lot of pain associated to a deadline, then they will take action, which is why HMRC imposed the threat, and obviously they'll act it out in terms of the penalties. Most of us are driven, that we're motivated away from pain and towards gain. And really, until the last minute, there's not enough pain associated with that tax return deadline earlier on in the year, is there? It's not until it gets to that last minute when the fine's being imposed that they think, yeah, I'd best get my act together and start sifting through my records. And there's very little gain to doing it early. There's just the deadline, really. So what if we can combine those two different types of motivations to encourage people to bring their books and records in as early as you want them doing? So, for example, the interview that I'm going to be sharing with Mark Lawson, and Mark Lawson, what he's done here is he's implemented the systems that we provide in System Builder, which is part of a membership package. Those same systems are the bonus that I've said I will give you at the end of this session. Really, what the system's saying is that give them lots of reasons to bring in the tax return information early. For example, if they get their tax return done early, they can better plan for paying the tax bill. They can probably get some better planning advice from you in terms of reducing the tax bill in general anyway. And what Mark does, and something we certainly advocate, is put some penalties in place for bringing them in late, but put some rewards and incentives in place for bringing them in early. So, for example, what Mark does is, and quite a few of our other members as well, they have a ratcheting scheme. So they will have a price for their tax return that they've agreed up front with their client. And then what they'll say is, if you bring in this, and they'll set a deadline date as well. So let's say it's October for somebody. So if you get your tax return information in the month of October, or maybe before the 1st of October, then this will be the price. If you get it in a month before that, it'll be less. It'll be less by 20%, 30%. And if you get it in after that deadline, then there will be a penalty on there. So it'll be plus 20% or plus 30% or whatever it is that you do. Now, that's not just a letter that goes out that imposes that. That's a handshake style face-to-face agreement that you have with your client, whether they're an existing client that's accustomed to bringing this stuff in last minute or not, or whether it's a brand new prospect. It's about having a conversation and having an agreement. If somebody tells you you've got to do something, we all like to rebel on that one, don't we, unless they can actually enforce something. But if you have a conversation with somebody and say, look, the way that we do things here are, we don't leave tax returns until January. We like to plan early so that we can help you pay your bills, we can help you plan and get that tax bill down as low as possible. So we like to stagger doing our tax returns throughout the year. Yours nicely fits into October. You get your stuff in there, then this will be the fee. If it's early, it's less. If it's late, it's more. Can we have an agreement on that? And it is literally a shake hands agreement. If you've shook hands with somebody and agreed something mutually together, then I've no doubt, and I'm speaking on your behalf here, but I've no doubt that you will feel obliged to follow through on that commitment because you've shook hands on an agreement. Whereas when we just set expectations on there and say, this is what we want from you, or this is what we insist from you, and things like that, it doesn't have the same level of impact, does it? So the system that we send out, again, it sets this framework for having an agreement with your client. You set that expectation. I know I'm contradicting myself by saying it's an expectation, but basically just say, we don't do tax returns in January just because of the reasons that I've mentioned, and go through those benefits of early and the pain, if you like, of it being in late. Now, what Mark Lawson does in the interview that I'm just going to share with you in a moment is that he sets monthly targets internally as well for his team. So each of his team member, I think it's 8 per person, but I could be wrong on that. I forget what he says in the interview now. It might be 8 altogether. That each person has to basically pick up the phone, ping an email to their clients to encourage them to get the stuff, to remind them of the agreement, to get their information in by that particular deadline. And that works. That works absolutely perfectly for them. So internally, they've got monthly targets. They've planned the year out in advance so that there's no pressure in January at all. Most of what they do in January are the ones that they've decided, yeah, we'll do those 8, for example, in January. And the rest of the stuff comes in from people leaving their existing accountant because their existing accountant can't cope with the demand, and finding another accountant like Mark who says, yeah, we're okay. We've better planned our year and we can deal with this for you. So internally, he makes all of his team accountable for producing a set number of tax returns each month throughout the year. So I'm about to play this interview. Now, my original hope was that Mark was going to join us live on this webinar, and he was going to ultimately answer my questions live on the session so that you can also chip in with your own questions. Sadly, Mark had something else come up and had to back out. So what I'm going to play for you very shortly is a video that I recorded with him for the last time I ran this webinar. So it's me in my home office interviewing him. But ultimately, I think you'll find that what he talks about is going to give you a really good overview as to what he does, the whole structure, and what his Januaries look like as a result of that. At the time of the interview, he dealt with 280 tax returns in the year. I've mentioned he's based in Plymouth. He only dealt with 12 in the January that had just passed. And 3 of them, he said, were due to the fact that other clients came from another accountant who couldn't accommodate them. So let me just share my screen again, and I will play that for you. I will put my own monitor, my own camera on, turn that off, otherwise it's going to look odd with me being on the screen twice. Okay. Just going to make sure that, yeah, it's optimized for playing a video. Right. How many tax returns do you process it within a year? Well, you know, what's your tax return count?
Somewhere between 250 and 300, about 280.
And how many of those do you process in January?
12 last year. I was going to say about 3 of those were new clients who couldn't get theirs done somewhere else. So probably only 9 were clients.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, let's take a step back then to the very beginning. I suppose when you're processing your tax returns, much like everybody else out there does.
Yeah.
What were things like?
Yeah, it's the same as everybody else, really. I think, you know, we tended not to do an awful lot during the year, and then it started to sort of trickle in, you know, summertime, late summer, and then we were running around, you know, like headless chickens, December, January, you know, overtime, last minute rushes. I remember one year, I think the last filing day was a Saturday, and although we got all the tax returns done, we had to, I think, post them at that stage. And I had clients coming on a Saturday, queues of them, and I had to photocopy them because obviously admin had gone home and the photocopier packed in. So I was effectively photocopying them through a fax machine. You know, I was there all day Saturday, you know, completely tearing my hair out. So we've had some hairy moments for sure.
Okay. And so what, I suppose, what are the steps that you've taken to overcome that, to change that?
Well, we basically implemented a lot more chasing. So we now send out the request schedules very early on in the cycle. So they go out March. We send out all the Irish schedules March. We keep copies of those so that we can check items coming in with accounts records. But we basically chase religiously all through the year. We don't just wait till the deadline, you know, so we're chasing the normal late ones that maybe come in November, December. We're now chasing those May with the hope to convert them from even being, you know, the back end of the year. So that's happening. Standard letters going out on a regular basis, making sure that some clients only need interest. You know, we know the dividends because we're doing them. We know the salary because we're recommending it. So there may only be one account for interest. So rather than wait, you know, till November, December and ring them, we ring them in April and just ask for a bank authority, and just get it ourselves and crack on. So just a lot more chasing, a very rigorous cycle for 10, 11 months of the year.
And how labour intensive is that?
Not particularly. I mean, we've got printouts of the schedules from Iris, so we keep hard copies of what goes to the client. So the accounts team can see which ones we're still waiting for. They can see what information we want. So they would go through the account stuff, see maybe whether some of the information's in with the accounts records. Sometimes clients don't tell you, they don't understand the difference between the two departments. But not that labour intensive, given that the time spent is probably saving time December, January, when you can afford it. So, I don't think we're spending any more time, we're just spreading the load.
Okay. And how receptive have your clients been to the chasing? I suppose where I'm coming from, Mark, is I'd like to think that other accountants out there must be chasing for their tax returns from as early as possible so that they don't have that January deadline.
Sure.
So how is what you're doing differ? Does it differ?
Well, we've attached to that a fee pricing process where if it's late, they get substantial penalties. That is now 100% extra on the fees if it's December, January. But we're also giving £20 discounts if it comes in April, May. So we've got, and July or August, I think, is the same fee. September, October is like 20-30% more. So there's a whole range of fee levels. So, those who don't want to be paying 100% could even get 20 quid refund if they bring it in early. So that, combined with chasing and prompting them to remember that there's penalties looming, that seems to do a lot more.
Brilliant. Okay. And well, are there other things in there? I mean, it still sounds too easy.
Well, no, I mean, it's working out what information's required. So a lot of the time, some clients just never sent back the schedule that, contain the information such as it is. And we tended to wait to the very last minute to really chase them down. Whereas now we actually go through that schedule and work out what's needed, and we just find a way to get the information. As I say, bank interest can be obtained from the bank with authority. Building society interest can be obtained with authority. Dividends can be found online. So we could just send a tax return saying we've looked up the dividends based on last year's shareholding. If it's any different, let us know. And it usually isn't. So there's a lot of information we can get from the accounts department or from third parties or from the internet. And usually we don't start chasing that until later in the year. But I think it's just, bearing in mind we've been doing that for about 8 years. It's also about getting the clients to understand that message and why, just to make our life easier. But also we're telling them that they'll know their tax bill earlier. There'll be more time for tax planning. If the tax return comes in December, they'll find out with a few weeks to go what to pay. There won't be any time for us to plan to reduce that tax bill. So we're highlighting, the pain and the gain of having it done early.
The ratchet system in terms of the, going from an incentive to a penalty, I think that's in System Builder, isn't it? There are letters in System Builder that accountants can send. Have you changed any of those to better effect, or are they,
No, I think we've changed a lot of them. We even did one letter where we basically asked for them to help us to get tax returns done early. So we made it sound like they were really doing us a favour. And I think we had a cartoon of, a sweaty, overworked cartoon accountant on the top of the letter. So we've changed quite a few bits. And obviously the penalties and the surcharge systems changed over the years. Originally, we just charged 50% extra if it was January. We've now got a sliding scale of about 5 different price levels.
Right.
But the principle's the same.
Yeah. And so at the risk of putting words in your mouth, this ultimately, it's about being consistent and training them.
Yeah, I mean, we have a target where we have to get so many tax returns out each week, come hell or high water. Right. So we know that we've got so many to do, so many weeks to do them in, and we try and get a level process, and the tax team are on targets to do that. So if they get to the end of the week and they've still got 3 to each target, then they're really rushing around trying to find 3 that they can do.
Brilliant. Okay. So describe for me a typical January, Mark.
Basically, we just do the normal work we normally do. It's mainly admin chasing down signed tax returns that have gone out earlier. But from a tax team point of view, there's very little work to be done, and probably phone calls, saying what tax do I have to pay, where do I pay it to? But the tax team have no tax returns to do. The admin team are chasing down final signed copies, and the tax department just electronically send them through Iris. So, they're just doing normal tax work, computation work, and getting the systems ready for the following year.
Sounds wonderful.
Mm.
And it's just, yeah, okay, well, brilliant. Is there anything else you can add to that?
Not really. As I say, I think the pricing system does help. A lot of people do want to bring it in early. When we did a deadline of, I think, October, which was the first one we did, not many people brought it in up until July, August, September, but then suddenly there was a huge rush in October, which just meant we had another January in October. So we decided to spread it even more so that every month has a different pricing level, which helps clients work out where they are. But it's also recognising the sort of perpetual late people, and then at client meetings telling them that they've been late for 3 years, and making them aware that the majority of our clients deliver on time, and we expect them to do the same this year. So a little bit of pressure on the really persistent late ones, plus the penalties. But I think most clients are happy to do that. They just are, just like most people, don't want to be doing that until they have to.
So how have you planned it in? Presumably if everybody bought theirs in by the end of April, May, like you say, you don't want a repeat of a January just in May time. So are they happy with the expectation set that you're just going to schedule processing all the ones that you've got in between then and whenever?
Yeah, we don't have big backlogs. I say, because there's different pricing levels, you tend to find clients are different. So there are some who always bring it in May. The 20 quid refund is an extra bonus, but they would have done that anyway. Some realise that at the end of June, the 20 quid disappears, so they're now prompted to do it end of June. There's another rush at the end of August. So although there are sort of peak times, they tend to be every sort of month almost. But what we're finding is that we can get out a consistent number every week, and the time lag for doing that is probably at most 2 weeks. We might have 2 weeks work in 1 week, in which case putting half of them into next week's not a problem for clients. But we don't have any that's sort of hanging around for months because we had them too early.
Well, that stopped a little bit abruptly, didn't it? But hopefully you've taken some value from just getting that straight from the horse's mouth. Mark actually sent me, again, that was a couple of years ago, so I asked him if he could at least send me some numbers that represented, what were the latest. So at the moment he has less returns to do all in all. Mark's continuously refining his client list and weeding out some of the least profitable. So he has 258 to do. He's done 176 so far. Obviously, I'm just reading out the slides that you can see. And he's got 8 per week to do. Their target is, of course, the Christmas break, which is fantastic, isn't it? Getting them all out the way, and already he's been giving some discounts for the early returns, and the late ones currently amount to 8,000. So this stuff works for him. I'd just like to very quickly share another process that Jackie, one of our members, she's based in Wales, does. Those of you who are at the conference will have seen this, but Jackie produced a calendar for every single one of her clients, and literally it was tailored to at least by year end for every single one of her clients. But it's just got some reminders in, and I thought it was a really good idea and I wanted to share that with you. I've had her consent to do that. So really, you know, a typical day looks like that. There's just a bit of Christmas cracker joke humour on there. There are reminders then that, you know, in some cases they might be standard throughout, but in other cases, depending on year end, there'll just be a little reminder there for some of the stuff that they do. And at the bottom, there are just little did you knows about additional ways that they can help. And she spoke on Stages Down conference. She said that, you know, just producing this calendar for every single one of her clients has been fantastic. She hasn't had inquiries over the extra work. She's found that people are meeting the deadlines, and actually the fact that she's produced it pretty much unique, or at least from their point of view, unique to every individual, just speaks volumes. And that was very simple because she just literally had a spreadsheet where she just uploaded it onto the provider of this calendar, and it wasn't very much per calendar. So it's just a different way of helping to train your clients, giving them those deadlines. So still to come, I'll give you a link very shortly for downloading those resources, and also a link to complete the practice diagnostic review. One thing I'd just like to understand from this particular audience is, what are your aspirations? What do you really want to get out of your practice right now? And just give me an A, B, C, or D in the box. So an A is you want to build a £1 million practice per partner on a 3-day week with 30% plus profits. And B is you want to build an empire. You want £5+ million practice. You want to be working a 4-day month, so 1 day a week maybe, with 30% profits. Maybe you just want to get your lifestyle under control. Just, you know, you've got choice of hours, you've got a nice income, you want to get a great sense of fulfillment. Or D is you're absolutely happy as you are right now and you don't see need for change. So just give me right now an A, B, C, or a D in the box. That'll give me a flavour for the people in this this audience. So lots of C's, and quite often I think the C is the you know, let's just get there as a starting point, isn't it? So, okay, so I've got some A's in there as well. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, okay, all of those make sense. Yeah, maybe A, I can't fault you, Joanne. Why not? I'm a big believer in, you know, aim high. And if you get most of the way there, yeah, it's an absolute bonus, isn't it? So fantastic, that's given me a good flavour. Not a single D on the screen. Now that tells me that, you know, you're not happy as you are, and you would like something to improve in your practice. If I've mistaken that, by all means put something in the chat box, but ultimately that looks like all of you want to change, make some change for the better. Now, I'd just like you to, without any feeling of obligation whatsoever, just check your diary right now. Grab your diary, if it's a paper-based one, have a look on screen and tell me if you have the following dates free in your diary. So the 12th to the 14th of March next year. And just put free or not free in the chat box. I'm not holding you to anything. I just want to get a feel for where you're at right now. Okay, so I'm already in it. Thank you, Joanne. that threw me a little bit there. That's cool. Okay, so most of you there are showing that you are free. What I'd like to do is invite you to our 3-day masterclass. Our 3-day masterclass, now I'm going to, my next few slides, which I might as well take you through right now, will just give you a bit of an overview as to what we do in those 3 days. So from a features point of view, I'm going to talk features, benefits and outcomes here. So from a features point of view, it is 21 hours of CPD. We'll give you a certificate for that. We go through giving you a great understanding as to what the future looks like for the profession, what are the current threats facing the profession. We'll give you lunch and dinner, and we'll give you tea, coffee, beers and some soft drinks. So they're the basic features. What we do in terms of the benefits is we take you through, during these 3 days, our entire roadmap, and our aim is to share with you openly everything that we ultimately teach accountants that will help them grow a practice that's going to help them ultimately reach £1 million practice on a 3-day week, a £5 million practice, just that perfect lifestyle practice. We'll teach you everything. It starts with clarity. We'll help you map out what's your vision, and we'll help you reverse engineer that. What's your marketing strategy and your pricing strategy? And help you get those things in place. We'll help you generate some quick wins, or at least come out with some actions that will help you generate some quick wins. We help you better position your practice so that you're different in the eyes of your clients, you attract better quality clients. But also, one of the things that we've often found, and this is, I talked earlier about clients not being receptive to those added value services, those business growth types of services, is because many of them sadly see you as that stereotype accountant. You've always done this for me, or you're just like every other accountant, you're just churning out my compliance accounts. Who are you to offer me these services? So positioning really is about how can you change that perception in your clients and your prospective clients' eyes so that you are an expert in business. You can help them improve their business. Value then is about what are the different ways that you can increase the level of value that you can deliver to your clients. And this is in 3 ways. The value perception, and mapping out your customer journey, so how you can increase the value throughout that. Adding value to your core products, and then what are the added value services that you can deliver as well that will help add value to your clients' businesses. So fantastic comment there from Patrick. Thank you very much, Patrick. You attended last year. You highly recommend it. 3 days that will transform your practice. So appreciate that. And I noticed a couple of other people on here have been to masterclasses recently. So please do, guys, if you want to, I'm not forcing you into this, but if you want to say something about the masterclass from your experience, just change the drop-down list so it doesn't just say all panelists, so that it actually says all attendees and people can see it straight from the horse's mouth as well. We help you then gearing. So this is stage 1 of creating scalability within your practice. So getting your team much more productive, customer focused, and engaged in helping you grow that practice. Automation is about then really getting the scalability through the scalable types of systems that you can put in place and making sure everything runs to the high standard that you want it to. We help you raise your profile so that those really hard to get clients are actually looking out for you and wanting to work with you. And then we help you become much more purposeful. This is about changing lives. So they're the benefits of Masterclass. In that sense, that's the stuff that we go through. Some of the outcomes here, here's one from TaxiDebt. Over the past few months since ultimately the masterclass for them, written and implemented procedures for the team to use, increased the fees, they've graded their clients, they've got rid of some of their poor quality clients as well, which is a great way of getting back some of your time, the ones that aren't profitable. I'm paraphrasing this rather than reading it out on the screen. Another one here, shedding clients is quite a common theme. If you really analysed your client base and looked at the profitability side of it, that can give you a bit of a target list to say, look, we either need to charge you more or we need to start working together. If they're not profitable, then it's pointless working with them, isn't it? So that's a great win there. And again, helping change the perception. So another quick one here then. Again, ditching the Ds. I refer to those unprofitable clients as your D clients. Your A clients are your advocates. Work more with those and get more of those. So just a few outcomes there. Something, one of the people who, oh, thank you, Claire, I've just spotted that you've typed in the box there, so thank you for that, appreciate it. We had an email from Phil Tarvin. It was actually at Steve, because Steve had sent him an email, and I thought that what he put on here was fantastic. Steve obviously sent this through, and I'll just zoom in on this. So Phil Tarvin came to Masterclass because he'd heard about AVN and wanted to get involved with us. So he was kind of coming with the expectation of just finding out a bit more. But his words there, which I will read out, I'm sure you can read it faster than I can say it anyway. What I didn't expect, however, was to learn exactly how much more what more I could be doing in my practice with my clients. And those important to me. I've drifted to and from various business coaches in the past, but always lost interest in them because they just didn't care as much about my business as I did. With shame the rest of the team, however, at AVN, I firmly believe that they're as passionate about my firm's success as I am, if not more. So I thought it was a fantastic thing for him to say. Oh, thank you, Andrew. That's fantastic. I'm going to read that out because it's just to all panelists. So you've put, it's Andrew Hardy here. The masterclass is brilliant. I found the contributions by Shane and Steve really great. Although all the presenters were very good, I would thoroughly recommend you attend and experience the helpfulness and the helpfulness of the masterclass. The networking is also great. Who would you think could have so many nice accountants under one roof? Thank you for that. Just in addition, I mean, I'm not going to play all these, don't you worry, but we collect video testimonials from the people who are just bouncing from the rooftops from being at masterclass. The one there that you can see on the left, this was a guy who is Peter Still. He's actually based in Toronto in Canada, and he came over, he got on a plane 3,500 miles all the way over just for the masterclass. He turned up the night before and he left the morning after. He didn't come to visit England, he came specifically for the masterclass. I've got a wonderful video testimonial from him. That's not the one I'm going to play right now. This lady here, Renee, came all the way from Chicago. So by pure coincidence, we had two people from the Americas that came over to the masterclass. I've got a video testimonial of her. This is a very condensed version of that, which I'd just like to play for you very briefly now.
So the ultimate question was it worth travelling 4,000 miles to be here at this masterclass?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here. This workshop has been profoundly impactful, probably the most impactful professional development workshop that I've ever attended, including my master's degree. The content has not covered anything about tax or compliance. We're covering general business strategies that would be applicable to anyone, anywhere in the world. Most of us are so busy running day to day, just meeting client needs and working with our team members, that we don't take the time to strategize.
So what recommendation would you give to anybody listening to this video right now?
Jump in feet first and give it a try. You won't know what you're missing until you're here, and believe me, you'd be missing a lot.
So some wonderful words there, and as I say, there are more on our YouTube channel. Now, I want to open this invitation to you, but there are a few criteria that are important to us as well, so just be wary of this. I mentioned our values earlier. We want to work with people who are going to own it. They're going to take action. They're going to act on the actions that they write down and not just take notes. We want people, these are important values to us for our team as well, so we want people who are passionate about delivering high levels of customer service. So that's where Inspiring Wows comes in. We want to work with people who are prepared to have fun, but with a serious intent. Keep evolving, I've talked about that, keep learning, but actually doing stuff that you learn as well. And make lives better. And we've aligned ourselves with the UN Global Goals, but even right down to every little thing that we do for people, we want to help make lives better. If those values you feel are in line and aligned with yours, then great, that's a tick in the box. As I say, emphasis on that. We want people who are prepared to take action as well. It's no good just coming to things like this webinar and the masterclass, taking lots of actions and notes and letting them get buried on the desk. You do need to be a partner, because this is partner level training. Partners can bring along their team, which actually many will say that that's the best thing to do because they get their team on board. But where partners have sent a team member or team members but without themselves, the partners had second-hand information from their team members and they've not really wanted to take the action that the team have been enthusiastic, which has actually demoralised those team members. You can't be part of the top 20 firms and you have to be independent, well, we've had people attend as part of a franchise, but they've found that actually they've not been able to implement anything that they've wanted to because they're tied into a franchise. So what I'd like you to, if you're interested in attending that masterclass, just stay on for, I've said 7 minutes, it's probably not even that, just at the end, because I just want to share those resources with you. What I would like though is an interest, if you like, from you. Is this something that you're interested in attending for that March masterclass, 12th to the 14th? If it is, just put a yes, put an I'm in the box below, and then I will go through that with you in more detail at the end. So I'm still not going to hold you to this by any stretch. I just want to see what your interest is. So, okay, I've got some IMINs coming in already. So I'm just going to give you a few seconds. Okay, keep those coming in. That's fantastic. If you can release yourself. Fair enough, Joanne. Okay, so there's a, all right, family, that's spot on. Well, I've already said family first as far as I'm concerned. So that's great. All right, spot on. That's fantastic. So I've got a few IMINs there. Right, let me just talk you through getting your hands on these resources. Now, to do that, I just need a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a link in the chat box for you to get your hands on these resources, and that'll enable you to download it there and then. So just bear with me whilst I pull that up, because I forgot to copy it in. Like I said at the very beginning, I had a bit of a meltdown with my computer just prior to it starting, so a couple of things didn't quite go to plan. Right then, so what I'm doing now, I'm just putting into the chat box, all attendees, make sure it goes to everybody, a link that will enable you, if you click that link. Now, my recommendation is click it right now and let that download in the background, because when I terminate this webinar, you'll lose the link. I will put it in the follow-up email anyway, but at least grab that, and then you've got access to those three things that you can start using straight away. Okay, and then finally, my final slide really, until I come back to you guys who said you were in, is I said that there was a bonus at the end. Now, I know, again, some of the delegates that I can see on this list have done this already. I would suggest if it's more than maybe 3 months since you did it, it's worth doing again. This is a diagnostic review for your practice. What I'll do in the email that follows this, I will put a link in there for you just to take the test. It takes on average about 7 minutes. It's an online set of questions that you can go through, and what you'll get is it's a bit of a situation analysis. Where are you now in your practice? What are the strengths and weaknesses? And it will also then give you some great strategies that you can focus on. It will give you 21 recommended actions that you can put into action as well. So absolutely worth doing. I highly recommend it. We've had such fantastic feedback from people who've gone through that process. They thought the process in itself was very thought-provoking, but they found the report as well that they get really valuable. Just give me a yes in the box if that's something that you will go and do when I send the email link out. Okay, so all of you, most of you at least, have put in a yes in that box, so that's good stuff. Okay, so I think there's only Paul there who's got it selected to all panelists and attendees. That's something I normally ask people to do, actually, so that you can see what other people are doing. I forgot to do it this time. I refer back to my being flustered. So, okay, look, thank you very much, everybody. Are there any questions on the stuff that we've talked about in terms of the tax return season, and eradicating that word season and maybe just structuring it across the year, putting those mechanisms in place? You've got the downloads. If there are any questions, just ping it into the chat box now. Or the Q&A, whichever takes your fancy. I've got them both in front of me right now, since some of you have been completing both. If not, then what I'm going to do then, or if you're just thinking about a question, I'm just going to go back to the guys who said I'm in. So if you didn't say I'm in, if this is not something that you can do right now, in fact, let me know if you are interested in attending a future masterclass. We have got another one in July. So let me know if a masterclass in the future is something that you'd like some information in. Great, we can send you some details for that. So, okay, that's cool. So, Paul and Joanne, you'd like some information on the future ones as well. So that's cool. I will get that information set out. Otherwise, thank you very much, Claire. Appreciate that feedback. That's lovely. Yeah, I was going to say, if you've not said I'm in, then the webinar can end for you. So thank you very much for attending. I will let you excuse yourselves from the meeting now. hopefully it's been valuable for you. So thank you for that, and thank you for your words, Claire. Right, so if you said I'm in, again, a quick reminder really that the feedback we always consistently get regarding Masterclass is that it is absolutely outstanding. We're always asked, why do you give so much away in these events? And thank you, John, appreciate that feedback as well. Why do you always give so much great feedback in these events? And from our point of view, and ultimately, yes, we give lots of feedback in there. We give you as much information we can. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is that there will be a number in the room that can just go ahead and implement that. And of course, some of them just want our help making that happen. So we believe in just being absolutely open, share everything that we know. And some of the people in the room, if they want our help in accelerating the implementation process, the hand-holding process, then we can do that. Ultimately, it ticks every single box on my purpose that we're helping people go away and delivering a much better practice. I shared with you all of those video testimonials. I'm not going to play them again, obviously. I just want to remind you of the values. So, the qualifying criteria. It's ultimately about sharing our values, being prepared to take action, being a partner, all of those things. The prepared to take action then is important right now. The fee for attending the masterclass is £97, which is actually also a refundable deposit. Now, again, it's in our interest to put something like this on. We do get a number of people wanting to work with us, although there's absolutely no commitment on the day. So it works for us. The reason we ask for this, which is, like I say, more of a refundable deposit, is just to reserve those places. There's nothing worse than somebody saying, yes, I'm in, and then they don't turn up, which once we've filled these events, then we stop marketing for them, which means other people are missing out. So we ask for that refundable deposit. You're reserving your place. We're still buying you lunch. We're still buying you the evening meal. We're still buying you a few drinks as well. That's on us. If you take that immediate action, you're demonstrating to me that you are going to be an action taker, then it's £97. Otherwise, and it's still a refundable deposit, it's £197 afterwards. Okay? So there is a link on screen. I'm also going to copy and paste that into the chat box, which should make it clickable. Oh, Alan, you've asked for the downloads. I did put them in the chat box, but if you've not seen that, by all means, I will send it out as well following this, this webinar. Right, I'm going to put you a link into the chat box as well. It should go out to everybody. If you click on that, that will take you to the site where you can book your place at the masterclass. By booking it, you've still got the time to change it to a future, and you've still got your cooling off period as well. So we're not holding you to this, but I just want to right now see that you're taking some action and you're going to book these places there and then. Whilst that's happening, and please put me something in the box to say that you're dealing with that right now, that you are taking that action. And in the meantime, are there any questions about the masterclass itself? I know I've just talked to you about that. Are there any questions about the masterclass? What is it that you might think might get in the way of attending something like that? It's 3 days out the office. Arguably, if people can come from all over the world to something like this, their practice isn't any different to yours whatsoever. You know, they've still got clients that need their time, etc., and they've still got families. What are the concerns that you might be having right now that might prevent you from attending that masterclass? If you've got any, pop them in the chat box. Otherwise, I should just leave that open for any questions coming through. So there are no questions coming through. Do make sure that you've copied that link, because I will end. Yeah, child cover, I fully get that, Joanne, absolutely. That's more than understandable. So listen, if you want to commit to that and you can't get the child cover, you can obviously get the refund, or you can change it to a different day, whatever works for you, Joanne. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I get that you're a one-man band, Jamal, and something will come up. My question to you, and I know this may not sound very sympathetic, but you know, it's your practice and it's your life, and you can always be in a position where you're going to be at the demands of your clients, or you can just let a few fires burn for a few days with the intention of coming back and dealing with those fires so that they never happen again. So that's a choice for you, and one that only you can make, of course, Jamal. I'll leave that to you. Yeah, you're a one-man band. Well, you're a one-woman band, I should think. But yeah, I mean that's a very fair point, Joe. I'm going to read that back out. But yeah, you're a one-man band too. 3 days up north sounds awesome to me. I'm with accountants. So yeah, I don't know if that's sarcastic or not, but the networking opportunities that you get just. When we're running our own business, it's very rare we get to talk to somebody who might potentially be a competitor if they're in your area. What we find is people are so open with each other. They're sharing the problems they have. They're sharing the things that they've done individually as well that have overcome these things. So, you know, being a one-person band in a business can be very, very lonely. But something like this, it's a great community for you to bounce off each other and help each other out. So I highly recommend that you do take that leap of faith and just spend those 3 days with us. You're going to have your phones with you that you can make phone calls at lunchtime, breaks, check your emails, etc. So, and my question to you is, you know, if you weren't there for a client on one particular day, how big a deal is it likely to be in the grand scheme of things? That's, again, a rhetorical question for you. Right then, well, thank you very much for the interaction, everybody. And I will terminate this webinar right now. Thanks again, Joanne. Appreciate your comments coming in regularly throughout this. Really appreciated. I shall say goodbye. So all the best, everybody, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.